Everybody, I'm Krista Jordan. In today's world, we see a lot of highlight reels from people of faith. On social media, especially, we could be led to believe that living out our faith should come easily, like somebody else always knows exactly what they're doing in every situation, while we're the ones still wrestling to figure it out. The truth is, we are all wrestling. And following Jesus has always been about learning, stumbling, and growing, and falling down and getting back up again. That's the heart of the Limping Disciples Club. A reminder that even when our walk isn't steady, we remain steadfast in our pursuit of Him. Our goal here is to pull back the curtain and bring some transparency to that process. We want to talk honestly about what it means to strive to be more like Jesus in a world that pushes us to be more like Judas. We are here to share our real, sometimes messy faith walks with honesty and humility. We're not perfect, but our Messiah is. And the one thing we know for sure is his way is always better. So, with that, we're beginning a series of videos where we look at our world through the lens of the Beatitudes, a blueprint from Jesus on living differently from the world while being immersed in the world, and asking ourselves, how do we live as faithful disciples of Jesus in today's world? We'll be wrestling with scripture, untangling things we've learned that don't line up with the word, and seeking to clear out all that threatens to blur our ability to see him. We are all believers doing our best to follow Jesus in 2025 America, and our hope is to reflect his heart while sharing our experiences and perspectives through honest and humble conversation, with plenty of grace towards ourselves and others. Joining me today are Matt Adams, Kim Shemaine, and Renita Lee. Thank y'all so much for being part of this conversation. It's going to be a lot better for having y'all here. So I want to start by asking, and I know this is a lot of people, I'll have this up probably sometime this week. How many of y'all have been following or heard about the TikTok lady calling the churches and asking for the baby formula?
I have
Because
heard.
it's been It's like, so a lady, if somebody's not watching for context, there's this lady, to my understanding, I don't know that she's a believer, but that's beside the point. She is calling churches and she plays the sound of a crying baby in the background. It's very convincing. And she says, I ran out of formula yesterday and I have a 2-month-old baby who's hungry. I was calling to see if you could help me with a small can of formula. And at the last count, I know there was like 33 churches that refused to do anything to help. 9 churches so far have helped her. One of those was a Buddhist temple. Another was a mosque that helped her. And this sweet, sweet, precious little Appalachian papaw that everybody's just fallen in love with. And most of the churches who have turned her down, they're like larger churches with more, you would think, more resources and means. She's called some more famous churches, and it's been pretty heartbreaking for me.
And I think we get so caught up in we get caught up in ourselves, and we get caught up in looking at us rather than looking at other people. And we have a tendency to play that down or to make judgment calls before we really know somebody's story. And it leaves us, it leaves a bad taste in my mouth, but it's also one of those things that you wonder, where did that heart shift a little bit? Where did we step sideways on that one? That, I mean, to me, that would be almost an instantaneous request. You call me and ask for formula, then we're going to the store to get formula.
Mhm.
I don't understand the hesitation.
Yeah. I heard this one pastor, he said, at what point, he said, at no point did Jesus say, see if somebody's worthy before you offer assistance, or stop and take a moment to consider whether or not it's their own fault in that situation before you
Mhm.
offer assistance. And I saw this one, the guy from the mosque, somebody was interviewing him, and he said, hey, I don't know what he was referencing one of their books, and he said, there's a proverb that says, he is not a believer who goes to bed full while his neighbor is hungry. And I thought, wow. I mean, I
Wow.
just feel
Wow.
like, yeah, talk about, Renita, we've talked about this, how what a blessing it is when you come to understand conviction of sin and correction from the Father, and you come to realize what a blessing it is, how much it frees you in your life. And I feel like this is a big moment for us. This could be a big blessing for the church if we would allow it to be,
Well, and out
so
of Christ's own words in Luke, he says, "Give to everyone who asks
everyone.
of you." Um, and even he even takes it a step further and says, "If anyone takes what is yours, don't ask for it back." I mean,
Hmm.
the call to living like Christ is, I think, a lot higher sometimes than what we set it, and that makes it difficult.
Yeah. Renita, you wanted to say something?
Did I do that thing right?
You did.
uh, I did. I have felt all week watching her, the words that I hear over and in my head, and Christy knows I'm all about a word, is just feed them first.
Hmm.
And I mean physically. Physically, our first reaction, I can't imagine it not be feed that baby first. Um, do the best we can, but I think we become jaded
Mm.
from the
Yeah.
world. I think we expect people to trick us before
Right.
being honest these days, and that's
And you think
heartbreaking.
that verse with what was it? You might be entertaining angels unaware, and I think I actually wrote that down. Let's see.
Oh, I
Oh,
just I just read that
yes.
one earlier.
Let
Yes.
brotherly love continue. Do not neglect to show hospitality to strangers, for thereby some have entertained angels unawares. Remember those who are in prison, as though in prison with them, those who are mistreated, since you are in the body. I mean, it's like, gosh, yeah, yeah. It's it's been heartbreaking. I did see, and then I looked around me. I looked in my area to see, because Rick, my husband, he's like, how many churches in our area are doing stuff, and I was pretty heartbroken to see the lack. But then when I focused on the ones who are, oh my gosh, there is this amazing fellowship in my town, and this pastor, I watched this video, and he said the gospel is, he said, right here, this gospel we're going to be preaching people is everybody eats. He said, part of our gospel is everybody eats. And I thought, oh, it was beautiful.
Mm,
But
yeah. Jesus said feed the multitudes. He didn't tell us
mhm.
who they were, what they believed. He said he had compassion on the crowd and said, let's feed them. He
Yeah,
never took
amen.
time to point out to us how they were judging these individual people. He had compassion on them. And yeah, I think this week, I also think that and this becoming more jaded is we just assume things and you just hear people repeat them about, well, they'll take advantage of it. Oh, things like that. Or do they really need it? And um, I personally this week have been brought to my just tears because I've watched people stand at a blessing box and only take what they needed
Mhm.
and
And
say,
even if they take
and,
sorry, go ahead.
and say to you, and I say, oh, come on, let's just take the spaghetti with the sauce. And the little lady who was older said, oh, I really think, honey, I've got some at home. And that's what people need to hear because we're some reason in our mind we think everybody's taking advantage of you, everybody's taking advantage of each other. And we're at a point, y'all, that it's real.
Mhm.
People are truly hungry. People are truly scared. And so
And
I just want to tell
even
people
if they
that
took the whole thing, you don't
who
know, like, they
we
could
don't
have
know.
families, they could have other
Yes.
people. We need to
Yes.
assume the
Yes.
best.
I've
Matt, you
seen
wanted to
people.
weigh in on that?
Yeah.
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 We're
Well,
getting
if
there,
we're
y'all. I'm
doing
sorry. We're trying to figure out the format, and then we're all trying to be,
Yeah.
you know.
if when we're talking about the Limping Disciples Club here, and I was thinking about it earlier today, I almost assume that when I'm scrolling through social media, that half of what I'm seeing is AI generated. It's a lie. It's something that somebody has created, and it really is feeding that mentality that Renita's talking about. Of we always assume that somebody's out to get us, or we always assume that somebody's going to try to take advantage. We always assume that, and it's one of those things that I really have to guard against. because, and I don't want to put too fine a point on this, but God didn't care. God didn't tell me to try to weigh in and determine whether or not I'm being taken advantage of. He didn't tell me to, but now I've got to be a good steward and I've got to be responsible. But that's not what he asked me to do. He said, if somebody asks and it's in your capacity to give it to them, you give it. And so separating myself and my spiritual walk from that highlight reel, taking advantage, always wanting a piece of the spotlight, social media is what I have to do to make sure that I keep my mind in the right space to go, okay, I'm not required to try to determine whether or not this person is worthy or whether this person's actually in need. If they ask, it's my responsibility to give if it's in my power to do so.
Yes.
So one of the things, I think this is in line with that, and I wrote it. I'd written it in my journal earlier, and I printed it just in case I might have an opportunity. Like maybe this would be part of the conversation. And Matt, you just did the lead up. It's many moral issues of our time have been rebranded as political, which makes it easier to compartmentalize obedience to God and excuse complicity in evil. And so I feel like that's, we have been taught to separate it. Oh, this is not a moral issue. This is a political issue. And so that's where I'm finally at a point where I'm stepping back and I'm seeing so much more clarity. I'm like, no, this is a moral issue. This is when my father says in his word that his children should do this, that's a moral issue. That's an obedience to God issue. And that's where my first
Absolutely.
and final loyalty lies. Yeah.
And
So,
you can't assume it somebody else is gonna take care of that for you.
mhm.
So, I mean, a lot of times you think that, you hear all people talking about giving and giving, and so it doesn't let you off the hook that other
Exactly.
people are contributing.
We're
Um,
responsible for being faithful in giving. What they do with it, that's between them and him. We've got to make sure that we're doing what we're supposed to do in our relationship with him. I wholeheartedly agree. But I think we need to start thinking the best of people. We think the worst of people in all situations. Like you're in traffic and somebody cuts you off. That jerk, you know what? If you think the best of them, they may be rushing home, a kid may be sick, somebody may be in the hospital, they may have had a hard day. We should always assume the best of others, and yeah, I think we've lost that, faith like a child. We've lost that. I think it's a matter of trusting in the Father. When you trust in Him, it helps you
But
love His children.
I think we've lost sight of the fact too that at best, as we're wandering through the world, we only have secondary citizenship here.
Mhm.
And the rules that apply to me are from a completely different kingdom. And if I'm walking according to that kingdom, then I should look and sound and say things a little bit differently than the people around me. And I think sometimes we forget that secondary citizenship and make it our primary citizenship and go, well, I've got to do this and I've got to do that. No, we have to do what God called us to do.
Mhm.
And that can be a scary place, can also be a lot of fun.
And it's especially hard when you've got so many professed believers who are doing the opposite, and you see that, and it's hard because we love our brethren, we love our family, and it makes you question yourself, like, wait a minute, am I reading this right? Because they're doing the opposite, and I know they're I love them, and I respect them, and so I don't know, Renita, what
Yeah, to follow up on what Matt said, we should sound different about things. But I've come to this conclusion that I'm just going to feel uncomfortable in this world,
Mhm.
and I don't think any of us likes that. I don't. I don't like feeling uncomfortable because we're taught to feel confident and all this things and be butlered in this world and really are confident. I mean, in the world and what we're doing there, and our confidence should lie in the Messiah, not in us and in this world. And I am slowly learning to be comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah, and
And
have y'all noticed the last, I'm just going to say in our time, and maybe recent time, and you can take that to mean 100 years, 1 year, whatever. It's like the Father is, he's, it's like his people. when we can be deceived, we can be misled, and then he'll say, "Okay, you haven't noticed this, so I'm going to peel back the curtain and let you see." Okay, you still aren't noticing, so I'm going to peel back the curtain. Okay, you're still not seeing, so I'm going to make what you're doing wrong more and more blatant. And he just seems to be shining more, and I feel like it's under this big glaring spotlight now. And every time he adds another light to it, it's another opportunity. And I don't know, it's pretty the hypocrisy is it's glaring, it's blinding right now, but it's also opportunity. It's opportunity for all of us. I'm gonna stop. I'm sorry, I'm not making a lot of sense there. So I'm gonna move on. We'll start our topic for this week or this month, whenever we can get these people together again. The topic, this is the introduction to the Beatitudes. So this on this particular episode, we're gonna be talking about Matthew 5:3. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. And so from the context of the text, we're talking about humility. We're talking about people who are humble. And we put up a Google form for some of our readers to, if they wanted to weigh in. The first question we've got a series of questions, and we're going to share. I'll share this as a worksheet with y'all too after. Anybody who's watching this, if you want to go and talk out these questions in a small group, maybe write about them in your journal, you can participate just as we are. The first question is, when you think of the life of Jesus, what comes to mind when you consider how he practiced humility? And we had several really good answers. I wanted to read just two of them, if you don't mind. One is from Paula, and this one, I hadn't thought of this angle. I am quick to jump to my own defense when falsely accused, before I am reminded of how Yeshua stood still during his punishments and accusations. Though he could have called on 10,000 angels, he chose to still submit to Yahweh and humble himself in the hands of his accusers. And then another one who was anonymous. Jesus humbled himself in the midst of turmoil. He knew what was in the heart of man, kind of what we were just talking about. He knew what was in the heart of man, and he humbled himself to follow the Father's will. He knew what was coming, yet he didn't just willingly, but joyfully gave himself. No other person in his circle knew, and he wanted to give himself for us. And then the last one, they mentioned that his desire to be around the poor, the sick, and the brokenhearted. And that just, he knew like, and so by this context, if somebody said, "Hey, I'm hungry," and Jesus knew that he was going to give them money and they were going to turn around and do something awful with it, he would have still given them the money. He still did it for us. So our first question that we want to discuss is, when you think of the life of Jesus, what comes to mind when you consider how he practiced humility? Who wants to go first?
When I read this, my first reaction was, maybe the real question is, how didn't he? Because his entire life here was showing humility to others. I mean, he humbled himself coming to earth as a human being,
Hmm.
and he came not to serve. I mean, not to be served, but to serve. And when I think about the Son of God came here to serve, it blows my mind every time I think about it. And he showed us in the most sacrificial way how to live and die for others and how to love your neighbor. And he chose to show us who he was through his actions, helping the poor, helping widows and orphans. This is written in Isaiah. We think about his obvious demonstrations of humility, like washing the disciples' feet, riding into Jerusalem on a donkey, and forgiving people who wronged him, which comes back to what you just read. Not reacting, but um, uh, and he everything he did was with an obedient heart to the Father, and to bring glory to his name. And when you're obedient to somebody else, there's humility in that, and being willing to subject yourself to somebody else. And Yeshua spent a lot of time alone with the Father, asking him his will. And he even showed he was dependent on the Father. I mean, it talks about that in John 5:19 and John 8:28. And I think recognizing our absolute need of him is at the heart of being poor in spirit.
That was so good.
That's good.
You know, as you were talking, it occurred to me, it just hit me. This whole series, each of us is gonna just be repeatedly over and over bragging on and telling the world about the goodness of our Messiah and his way. And that just I've got goosebumps. Anyway, Renita, you wanna weigh in on that one?
Yeah, I had so much. I mean, what Kim said, I believe the being a servant. That's what I've got written down. I put down he was in a greedy and self-serving world. He lowered himself. He come down here as a man to be an unselfish servant and entered a world of greed and self-serving. He rocked this world of pride and arrogance to bring peace and love and salvation to sinners, to us. And
Yeah.
man, that's humility. That's humbleness. That's coming in lowly. He's our king, but he was so humble. And the way he handles himself with people, no matter what. The more you read through what he did, the more aware I am of he was quiet a lot. You
Mhm.
know, he was action. He was feeding the people. He was doing the lowliest, the lowest. He washed feet. I mean, even servants didn't have to do that if they didn't want. I mean, he chose to be a servant, and yeah, that's just grasps the servanthood of him that he served.
Yeah. The love is just so it's his degree, his ability to love people is just astounding. The thing that really struck me, and this is probably a timely thing for me because it's something that I grieve over so much, is the way that he was able to see people, the way that he was determined to see people. He didn't see any label that society had put on them. He didn't see any label they had put on themselves. He saw each person, and that's something that I think we've missed a lot of that, and but I see it was so pure. It was so true. It was so heartfelt. He saw you. And isn't that what we all want? We want Jesus to look and see our heart and see our hope. And we want him to assume the best. We want him to think the best of us because he then helps us rise to become the best that we could be, more and more like him. And I think in this day and age, the way Jesus had such a heart that just saw each person and the Father Spirit within them, So, man,
So I thought about three different things when I was trying to answer this question, and all three of them at various points in my life have been just a lot. The first one, when um, I thought about Jesus after the resurrection, when and it's exactly what you said, CJ. He looks at Mary and he says her name, and that has always been one of the most, because in that moment when when she heard him speak her name, it changed everything in that minute. And then I think about the leper um, that came to Christ, and he said, "If you will, you can make me whole." And Jesus could have done it any way that he wanted to. I mean, he could have spoke, he could have nodded, he could have whispered, but for somebody who had never, since the time that they got this particular disease, had never known what it was like to be touched by another human being, Jesus reaches out and touches him. Because it's not about the label, and it's not about the disease, and it's not about what we've got wrong with us. He does see us as the person that we're supposed to be. And then I was reading in John, and Renita alluded to this, but John 13 verse 3 says, Jesus, knowing that the Father had given all things into his hands, and that he had come from God and was going back to God. Now, that's that's something, if you're going to get prideful about, I guess that's probably something to jump on the pride wagon about, that The Father had given all things into his hand. He had come from God. He was going back to God. So what does he do? He rises from supper. He lays his outer garments aside, takes a towel, ties it around his waist, pours water into a basin, and begins to wash feet. Not just wash feet, but wash some of the dirtiest, nastiest, mud caked feet that you've ever seen. And this is the guy that knows he's going back to God. And that's what I think about when I think about his humility. It's not weakness, it's not an absence of strength. It's strength in submission, and it's strength in submission to the Father's will, and it is the most beautiful thing that I think I've ever seen.
Yeah. Whew, that was, whew. Um, yeah. I think we answered the first and the second question there. What do y'all think? Do y'all have any, Matt, or maybe Matt just summed it up there. That was, well, wow. I just want to send y'all questions and y'all just record answers and send them to me because this is amazing. So, moving on, why do y'all think this particular beatitude, blessed are, we'll just say, blessed are the humble. Um, why do you think this is hard for people to grasp or live out today? Renita, you want to start with that one?
How it challenges the world today.
Yeah. Why
Yeah,
is it so hard for us to understand this or to live it out in our world today?
because we've just forgot.
Mhm.
We've forgot the word, first of all, of what we've been taught there to live it out. And we're for some reason been taught that it's impossible, that it's too heavy, too hard. I mean, in a world that, you know, in a world of you do, you boo, you know what
Mhm.
I mean? In a world of we need to be saying, you do for others, boo. You love your neighbors, boo, have compassion on others, boo. But we're in a world of entitlement. What we deserve gets we're material things. I mean, I have to come back to say, man, Yeshua, material things, that was not important to him. And that's hard in this world because we're all about collecting things and material things. And did he ever own anything? Yet he owned everything.
Everything.
He
He
didn't have a
valued what
home,
had
but yet
value. Yeah.
he owns everything. It's all. So I think it is hard for us humans. We humans, we like our things, we like our entitlements, we like what we think we deserve. And he brings an unconditional love. And that's hard for us here on this world. It brings back what we're talking, how we become so cynical about even people's needs, you know.
Hmm.
Um, and so I think it is hard for us to give. And he brought with his humility come a love that we should just we can follow every day, strive better and better and better to do. But we can't serve ourselves and do that. And there is a surrender there. And it is hard to surrender yourself in this world. It's hard. And it affects people. They'll turn it's hard to surrender in this world and what he's brought.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. And I think we've been kind of, because people in the world, there are all of us who've had experiences with people that you can't trust, that you shouldn't, surrender to because they're going to take advantage of you. But this is where it comes. The Father says, "Do you trust me? Do you trust me? You've tried the world's ways. Do you trust me?" You know, Kim, what do you think?
I think, like we've been talking about, we live in a culture today, and I feel like it's a culture that believes in God less and less, and in ourselves more and more.
Yeah.
And we're so divided by identity politics, and people are just dug in on every side. And I truly believe we have lost the ability to see each other as a child of God. And it's
Yeah.
showing in how we're treating each other. And I think this beatitude requires us to understand that without the Father and without Yeshua's sacrifice, we are without hope. And it's a hard thing to say. I'm completely dependent on the Father when the world is urging me to count on myself, my own hard work, the material comforts that it offers. And technology is telling us what to think, what to wear, who to listen to. And human nature is we want to fit in and we want to be liked. We want to know we're good enough, but by whose standards? And the truth is, we are in no way good enough. And we need the strength and the wisdom of the Father. So,
Yeah. I think we are believers today are in the midst of a great identity crisis. We have placed our identity in everything other than Jesus, and so much to the extent that we don't even recognize Jesus anymore. I don't think we do. We've created our own Jesus. We've made him over in our own image. But I think it comes down to even that. The root of that is we're following the wrong leaders. We're following our own heart, our own flesh, or we have appointed for ourselves people that we have decided, okay, these are the people we want to emulate, these are the people we're going to submit to, these are the people we're going to have our conscience and our morality shaped by. And ultimately these are the people who we are going to place our identity in. And the only person it is safe to put our identity in is Jesus. He's the only one you can put you when you place your identity in him. No matter what, you're always going to be growing. You're always going to be getting better. And when you find that you've made a mistake, that you've committed an error, that you've gotten off track, it's a blessing because you accept that because you know, oh wow, now I get to get closer to him. When we place our identity in anything else and we find and that's criticized or somebody shows that, oh, there's some fault in this, then you have to dig in your heels and you have to get all defensive and stuff. So anyway, that was a very good point. You've got some really good one-liners tonight, Kim. I've got to take notes here. Matt, you want to weigh in on that one?
Yeah, I do, and not that I can add much, but I think we've almost allowed the world to push a golden calf in front of us, and we didn't even notice that we had switched our eyes because the world exalts status and achievement and influence and control. It's what they're all about. I mean, that's what the world says you need in order to be successful. But when you look at God's economy and when you look at the person of Christ, he exalts surrender and
Mm.
sacrifice and service. And he even says that, and I've got I got a couple things. So in Mark, he says, "But it shall not be so among you. Whoever would be great among you must be your servant, and whoever would be first among you must be the slave of all. For even the Son of Man came not to serve, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many." And we don't like that. That twists us into knots because you're telling me that rather than being the boss and rather than being in control and rather than being all of a sudden I've got to serve even the least. Yeah, that's exactly what he's telling you. But what I don't think we understand is, and that's what there's a fantastic quote from C.S. Lewis. Um, it says, "It would seem that our Lord finds our desires not too strong, but too weak. We're half hearted creatures fooling about with drink and sex and ambition when infinite joy is offered us. Like an ignorant child who wants to go on making mud pies in a slum because he cannot imagine what is meant by the offer of a holiday at sea. We are far too easily pleased. When we turn
Wow.
loose and serve and allow the joy that comes from that service to fill our heart, it does turn the world on its head and it does make things look different. but it's the only way that we can adequately follow in his footsteps because he served everybody.
Yeah. Oh, that was good. I had another verse I wanted to add in here. I wrote this out the other day. It's James 2, verses 4 through 7. Have you not made distinctions among yourselves
Mm.
and become judges with evil thoughts, referring to like, oh, this separating people by class and, has God not chosen the poor of this world to be rich in faith and to inherit the kingdom he promised to those who love him? But you have dishonored the poor. Is it not the rich who oppress you and drag you into court? Or are they not the ones who blaspheme the noble name by which you have been called? And that just, and yeah, we do. We're not humble because we judging others. The cheap way to elevate yourself is by diminishing others. That's one of the reasons. I know I don't want to belittle the whole thing because everybody's made some really good. This is a diamond. There's multifacets, and every way you look at it, you see another angle. Some of our readers weighed in on this, and they said one of the recurring things, and this is strange because this form was nobody could see anybody else's form, but there was this one phrase that was said over and over, and it's why do you think it's hard for people to grasp or live out today? Because people who are meek in our society are thought of as weak. And then another one, it's hard because they see meek as weak and vulnerable. And then another one, people see meek as weak. We are constantly being bombarded via social media with bigger, better homes, trips, cars, etc. And meek is looked upon differently. Because we live in a world that preaches, even shouts, that we should be happy and look out for number one. And then another one, because people have a tendency to equate meek with weak. But where's the source of our strength? You know, I mean, when we rely on ourselves for the strength, how far does that? That's where we are now. So, yeah. So now we've got where does God's wisdom um, turn the world's reasoning upside down? This is I'm trying to find a way. Yes, where does God's wisdom turn the world's reasoning upside down? Man, I'm going to make you go first this time.
I'll go first on this one.
Mhm.
Um, God never does things exactly the way that you expect him. And his economy is so much different than what we're used to. And I mean, I can think about 1,000 stories from the Bible where we go. I mean, you think about Gideon, and you think about Gideon starting with a large army, and God just keeps shrinking it down and shrinking it down and shrinking it down. Then he goes, okay, now go. Now tear out and get that. You think about David and Goliath, and you think about um, all of those things. Everything that God does, he does in a way where, and I think he does it intentionally, where I'm not going to get any glory out of that because his name is the one. And even in the life of Christ, the only name that was exalted routinely was the Father until the Father chose to exalt Jesus. And so when you understand that everything in this world, I mean, everything that we're told to do, everything that we're commanded to do, he says, give to anybody that asks of you. He said, if they take your cloak, give them your coat also. If he asks you to go 1 mile, you go two. And the world's looking at you like you have lost your mind. Why would you do that? Why would you be that person? Why would you give like that? Because the foolishness of God is wiser than men, and the weakness of God is stronger than men. And God chose the foolish things of the world to confound the wise. He knew that this was going to look dumb to the rest of the world. And that's okay because I'm not trying to look smart to the rest of the world. I'd a lot rather look dumb to the rest of the world and God go, yeah, you got that one right. And so when he turns the world upside down, when he turns my world upside down, I always go, all right, what are you trying to teach me here? And when can I be honest? Can I just be honest?
Please do.
When he puts that person in my life that I struggle with, that I go, God, the way that he fixes me is always to tell me, all right, go serve them.
Mm.
It- the one you don't like, the one you disagree with, the one whose personality rubs you the wrong way, you go serve. And I'm like, wait a minute, can we talk about that just a little? No, that's not what I asked you to do. I said, you go serve them. And you want to talk about humility. And that's some God enforced humility because I have to swallow my pride and go, wait a minute, there may be something in their personality that does rub me the wrong way, but it may just be a rough edge on mine that keeps catching that God's trying to smooth out.
Oh, that's good. That's good, man.
Yeah.
Renita, where do you think that
Uh,
God's wisdom turns
Just
the world's wisdom upside down here?
well, let's face it, everything it there's such a there's a total contrast in the world's wisdom and the Father's wisdom. I mean, I've had Yeshua walked it out in love. I wrote this. I found this today, and it comes back on the last question and this one. And I wished I could find who said it. I can't. If I do, I'll come back in and add it. We weren't meant to fake strength because do you feel like sometimes that's just
Mm.
what we've been taught to do?
Mm-hmm.
We know we can't do it alone, but we're taught you got to be strong. You got to be strong. Like, and we do that as we do that to our children, to everybody. And we know this world's tough. It's just so tough to be strong in. And so I think what Christy and I've agreed through this limp and decide is we're just be honest that we just
Mm-hmm.
limp through, and we know, and we just know our strength, and we're wanting that. But they said we weren't meant to fake strength. We were made for dependence.
Oh, wow.
That's good.
We were to surrender ourselves to the Father with nothing. Just let Him fill us up, you know? And I think that's where, as you get older, you just start realizing we cannot control, we just don't have control of things. And we weren't meant to be. We weren't meant to be so strong without Him. We're just, I thought we've just limping, faking along a lot. And that we were made to be dependent upon Him. That's how He loves it. Like that we're dependent upon Him. And until we can surrender and learn what emptying ourselves is a beautiful thing, because what He that's emptying out all the thing, the hate in us, that's emptying out the not caring, and He can fill us up with love. And that's how the world can change. If
Yeah.
believers would just be filled up with His love, we got to empty ourselves out and surrender it. The poor in spirit, I think that's very. When I study something, I go and instead of the word, I go look up the opposite. Like,
Mhm.
because that's where I usually am. If He tells me to do something, I'm usually opposite of that already. So I go and look
Mhm.
up the opposite, and I go, yeah, that's me. That's me. I'm exactly the opposite of the definition of what He tells us to be. So poor in spirit, that really hit hard. That this poor, we have to be bankrupt of this world,
Ooh,
like
I I love how
and
you said
and
that.
we are taught to not be bankrupt in this world. Now, I'm not saying we don't have to take care of our finances, work hard. I'm not saying that, but there has got to be a balance that is not where our treasures. We should be bankrupt in the treasures of this world, you know.
Mhm.
And being poor means broken. I'm broken. I feels humble, And that poor in spirit thing, we just tend to want to run from that word there of being
Yeah.
poor.
Matt, you
But
had something else you wanted to add?
yeah,
Yeah, I just wanted to tack on to something that Renita said, something that God continually tries to teach me. He tells Paul that my grace is sufficient for you. My strength is made perfect in weakness. And so many times we rob ourselves of strength doing exactly what Renita said and trying to do it on our own because we
yes,
jump out there and in our own strength, we prevent ourselves from relying on God's. And if his strength really is made perfect in weakness, the best thing that I can do is empty myself and just lean on him and go, I don't got it. It doesn't matter what it is. I don't got it. I'm not good enough to do this. I need you in every minute of every moment of every day. And then God can go, all right, I can use that. But instead, we jump out there and go, no, I got this. I can handle this one on my own. And we rob ourselves of God's strength when we do that.
Yeah. Kim?
My thoughts were along the lines of both Matt and Renita, and that when the world is telling us to want more, to be more, to elevate ourselves, the Father's telling us we need to change and be like little children, and who are in many ways, like you're talking about, they're empty vessels waiting to be filled. They're dependent on their parents. We've got to empty ourselves of the world's inclinations, and know that we are dependent on Him. The world would have us filling ourselves with whatever we desire, whether it hurts others, doesn't matter. And when we do that, we're back to a completely inward focus on ourselves and not an outward loving service to others. And I think, in true humility, and I come back to this again, we treat others completely differently when we see them as a child of God and when we look for ways that we can serve them.
Yeah. That's if we just we got a heart disease. I think as the TikTok formula experiment has shown us, we're suffering from a severe heart disease. Um, for this, where does God's wisdom turn the world's reasoning upside down? As y'all were all talking, it is hard because it takes a lot of trust on Him, and it defies all logic to just follow His leading and trust that He's going to provide, He's going to take care of things. And it sure would be nice if we could see into the future, and if He would just tell us exactly what His plan is, because we know He has a plan. He doesn't ever tell me His plan because He knows I'm going to get ahead of Him and try to, and I'll mess it up. But I was even thinking about, and I hope most of us have this memory of being a young child and maybe falling asleep on the couch. And instead of waking you up, somebody comes and they pick you up, and your head is on their shoulder, and they got their arms around you, and they carry you into your bedroom, pull back the covers, gently lay you in bed, and tuck you in. And I don't know about y'all, I was awake the whole time and I was faking it because I love that, you know? And I feel like that's what God's wanting to do for us. He says, "Hey, shh, just let me get you. I got this. I got this." And He's carrying us. And if we were just more aware of that, I don't think we'd be kicking and screaming and fighting so much. Just lean into it and just enjoy it, you know?
In God's economy, weakness is the doorway to power, surrender is the path to victory, and death is the beginning of life.
And you're going to write that down, right? All of these things that y'all are
Like
saying,
that.
you have to give it all to me. I want to put it in a worksheet for everybody. I want a printable. So that, Renita, you've had several things, and that quote you shared, and all your one-liners. I don't want to have to watch these and pull it out myself. I want y'all to have it, get it to me, because I want to have a printable that people can take this, and they have all these.
Christy,
Yes, ma'am.
hey, I have something here. What Matt, what every one of you said, there is a short little Psalm 131 that if
Mhm.
I don't read right now after what you said, I'm probably going to just like blow up over here. And
Please do. Please give us that
y'all
gift.
know, you know that I love me some Psalms, but this stood out to me today. And what you just said about being that child, and this is David, and it's after he's been worn down, and
Hmm.
I think he's lost a lot of his pride at this point, and he's quit looking around him for everything. And Psalm 131, Yahweh, my heart isn't proud. I don't set my sight too high. I don't take part in great affairs or in wonders far beyond me. No, I keep myself calm and quiet like a little child on its mother's lap. I keep myself like a little child. Israel, put your hope in Yahweh from now on and forever.
Oh, that was good. Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
beautiful.
that's when, yeah, David knew. He knew things. And what you said about just, it's that childlike that Jesus tells us, that childlike faith. We're at our best right there,
And isn't it
in Him.
just thinking about that, like, having talking this out with y'all, I feel like my burden is so much lighter. I'm just reminded of how well he loves and how much he loves us. And I
Mhm.
wanna give that to other people. I want everybody to feel that, you know? Okay. Ooh, mercy. Um, so we're doing good with time. But listen, if the Father puts something on your heart, you better be saying it here. Um, what are the practical ways to live out this beatitude at home, at work, or in the community? Kim, you want to lead with this one?
Um, yeah, I keep, well, as a total introvert who is convinced that I am usually invisible and, kind of walk with blinders on, um, I've really been trying to, just acknowledge people as I see them. And Matt, I think it comes back to what you were saying before. Let them see you, use their name, use their, that kind of thing. And I'm really trying now to every person I look at, I said this before, is a child of God. He's my brother. He's not some crazy person on the wrong side of the aisle or a person at work who's done me wrong. And that changes my view on how I will interact with others. And it gives me opportunities to look at how to serve. And it can be as insignificant as, taking an elderly person's grocery cart back to the cart corral for them in the parking lot. It could be just saying hello to someone you're passing, you don't know them, but they know you've seen them, and that can make a difference in somebody's day. Um, and then I think volunteering. Um, there is so much blessing in volunteering somewhere where you can help others that you may not have that opportunity day to day and when you're at work and that kind of thing. But finding a place that you can go and really really help others, and of course donating to people who need the help. I think those are all ways that I try to look at and do that practice myself.
That's good. Renita, you want to weigh in on that
Uh,
one?
Kim sure summed it up great there. I'm going to just go with what she's going there. That was beautiful, Kim. Um, well, love. You know, I need to look at people through my Father's eyes, and I think of anything we just, yeah. I want to pray for wisdom and discernment, and in that though is seeing people like He sees them, like Kim saying there, is not see them the way irritated Rainita can be in, like you said, in traffic or Dylan in a long line, or, people just not moving like you think they should, is to look around. I found myself, if I just stop, um, and just calm myself and look at others around me and just go, Rob and I didn't where we do that. Let's just love somebody. Let's just love them.
Mhm.
We'll just look at it. Let's just love them. We're going to love them. It changes everything. And to see the needs of others, to be aware, look people in their eyes, to see their pain. And in our house, I used to tell my kids a lot, and some people would think, well, you're telling them not to not care about. No, I want them to. We got to care for ourselves. We got to take care of ourselves. But I would say, look, if we all are aware of what everyone needs here, if we don't spend time on ourselves, worried about ourselves and griping and off fretting on ourselves, and we look at each other and we take care of them in our family, you see what your brother needs, your sister needs, your dad or mom might help, then this circle goes and it just keeps going in this beautiful circle. And before you know it, your needs are being met. I mean, it's a beautiful thing, this love thing, when you love others and then they're looking for someone to love. And maybe we're not always at a point. I'm not saying we don't get to places where we don't even know how to love ourselves, much less somebody else. We all get there, but in general, if we're busy loving on other people, and if we would all, I'm talking to, you know, believers here, that we would all love each other, then you get taken care of. And he does this beautiful thing. He fills you up with strength when you don't think you have it, when you love people. You may be
Right.
tired, but like Kim says, go volunteer, go do something for someone else, and he will give you this amazing strength that you didn't even know you had. And yeah,
Yeah, and it brings so much joy and happiness. It almost feels selfish, but to be able to actively help someone, to make their life better,
yes,
to ease someone else's burden, it it eases yours, you know? Matt, you wanna weigh in?
Yeah, so I'm going to start with scripture, and then I'm going to give you my 5 point list that God said, Here's what you need to do personally." Um, Philippians, it says, "Do nothing from selfish ambition or conceit, but in humility count others more significant than yourself. Let each of you look not to his own interests, but to the interests of others. Having this mind among yourselves, which is yours in Christ Jesus, who, though he was in the form of God, did not count equality with God a thing to be grasped, but emptied himself by taking the form of a servant, being born in the likeness of men, and being found in human form. He humbled himself by becoming obedient to the point of death, even death on a cross." And so I was reading and thinking about this particular question, and the list that I came up with started with begin each day in surrender. Start my day not worried about what I'm going to be doing at work that day, not worried about the bills that have to be paid, not worried about myself, but in surrendering my will to God, in literally making not my will but yours be done the theme song of my life. And then I wrote down serve quietly, because I think the temptation can be to, even in service, even in trying to follow the Messiah, the temptation can be to get noisy about it, and to want to direct the spotlight back on ourselves, even in service. And but I don't even want the right hand to know what the left hand's doing. Just serve quietly. Listen first, because we've stopped doing that. We don't even listen really anymore. We're just waiting on our chance to speak. And every argument, every issue, any time that we're presented with the opportunity to go us versus them, if we will just stop and listen to both sides and then surrender, we stop a lot of nonsense. Because right now we're not even listening. The greatest tool in my life for practicing humility is learning to repent quickly. There's never a moment where I mess it up that God doesn't go, "Hey, you could have handled that a little bit differently. You could have, this is how you should have." It's not guilt, it's just conviction. And he always finds a way to gently nudge me back. My problem is, a lot of times I want to go, "Nah, that's exactly how I should have responded to that situation. That's exactly what I should have said," rather than surrendering and repenting quickly. And then practicing gratitude, because I know where I came from. I know what my story is. Um, I know all of the different places that I should have ended up dead in my life. And the fact that he even gives me the grace to be able to crack open and open my mouth and say something about his word still blows my mind. And as long as I practice gratitude, when I look back over the life that used to, humility is one of those things that I would have to practice. because I can't look at where I was and what he's brought me to without feeling completely blown away and utterly humbled by that fact.
Mm.
I when I was thinking about this, I was thinking that fear really can be the enemy of humility,
Mhm.
because I'm afraid of being humiliated. I'm afraid of losing face, um, whatever the case might be. And um, it really struck me that when you already know you can't do something under your own strength, you have nothing left to fear. He's got this.
Mhm.
And I'm really trying to work on getting that thought from my head to my heart so I don't panic.
Mhm.
And but it, I really believe if I can kind of center myself and realize that there is nothing to fear. If I lose face, who cares? You know, if I lose ground, if I lose, it doesn't matter.
He's got you. Yeah. We're laying up on his shoulder and he's the one carrying us. You know,
Exactly.
for me, humility is rooted in love, and it's, counting others as more important than you, looking after others' concerns, caring about your neighbor who's hungry, caring about your neighbor who's homeless, caring enough about mankind in general to know that every person you encounter is your neighbor. It's all rooted in love. And Renita made a really good point. She was talking about looking people in the eyes. And this is a little uncomfortable for me to share. So we're not going to go, y'all don't, nobody email questions. We ain't talking about beyond this. But, I have been, my appearance has been very different at different times in my life. And it's very painful to see how the general public treats you differently across the board when you look different. So when I was bigger, people don't look you in the eye. I mean, you really are, people avoid eye contact. And I know people don't realize they do this, but I've lived this, so I can tell you it's true. You can go in the grocery store. People aren't going to say hi to you. They're not going to look you in the eye. There'll always be a few, but it's like there's this. It is a different way of being viewed by society. And then when you when you look different, it was very unnerving for me. It was very uncomfortable to walk into a store and how many people bombarded me with eye contact and smiles and saying hello. And it was really hard for me to get used to because I was so used to being treated the opposite way. And I didn't really notice the opposite way until I experienced the contrast. And it was so painful because I know that these sweet, precious people don't realize what they're doing. They don't realize that, okay, I was the stranger that you treated differently a couple of months ago, a year ago. It's just, and it may be that, people avoid eye contact because they don't want to make you uncomfortable or something, but it feels very isolating, very, you're not one of us, get outside the camp. And then suddenly it's like your value changes in people's eyes. And it's that's really hard. I'm still not, I haven't fully reconciled that in my mind. I kind of get through it. But um, then I also think about the young people today and how isolated everybody is, especially our young people. When we were little, we hung out with people. We had places to go. We might go have a bunch of cars parked in a parking lot. We're all sitting out on the tailgates talking. Kids these days do not have that. And so they go to their rooms and they get on VR because that's how they play with their friends. That's how they talk to their friends. And we love to criticize them for it, but they don't have other alternatives. But I think, our young people are so isolated, and we can never underestimate what it means to look someone in the eye and to see their humanity, to not look away because maybe they don't look like you. Maybe they don't I don't know, whatever reason, okay, you encounter some young kid who's wearing all black and has purple hair. Wow, I love that shade of your hair. That is so pretty. I really like it. Notice, say something. You can always find something kind to say. And just Renita just really, she kind of derailed my whole
I'm
train
sorry.
thought there. Would say, look in someone's eye. Just look in someone's eye, because there was a time in my life where I would have given anything for people who would not look me in the eye, who wouldn't smile at me. And when you look someone in the eye, you're recognizing their humanity. You are seeing they're a soul. We are souls in bodies. You're seeing their soul. And I really grieve over the dehumanization that the body believers does today. Like I said, we're able to compartmentalize obedience to God from being complicit with evil, because we've made this. Oh, this is not a moral issue. It's always a moral issue. When you're dealing with another soul, it's a moral issue. When you're dealing with the child of God, your treatment of them is a moral issue. And to that same thing, I was thinking, this is something that I've talked to Ricky about a lot lately. Um, I think it's really important another point aside, I'm just going to throw this out there and I'll move on, is um, be content with God knowing your worth. Be content with the Father knowing your worth, with knowing your worth in His eyes, and not trying to please other people, because not trying to prove your worth to other people. And that's really hard. That's really hard for us to do. I think especially for women, that's hard. I think it's harder because we're always, our worth is in taking care of people. We kind of get wrapped up in that, and we're trying to prove that we're that and more, but I think it's also important in part of loving your neighbor, counting your neighbor is more important than yourself. When you find yourself around a group of people who are dehumanizing others, who are degrading your neighbor, those loved by God, and this is especially hard when that group of people is believers, that you love, that you dearly cherish. And I think it sounds bold, but I think it's humility tied with that love of neighbor. When those conversations start, you have to have a boundary there. You have to have a line that you won't cross, and you have to be willing to stand up, interrupt, and eject yourself in that conversation. I can't, lovingly, kindly, I can't be a part of this. And eject yourself from that conversation. And I don't know, I feel like that ties in with humility. Maybe I'm getting off the rails, but in so many situations, I just think, what would Jesus think about this? What would he do? What would he do if
It is saying, I see you, you're a human, you matter. And we have become too quickly, like you said, to just dehumanize because we get together in our little groups and decide that those people are bad and we're good.
Mhm.
And we got to stop that.
And in
And
most of
by
those
walking
cases, those
away,
people are
yeah,
believers too.
yeah, exactly. We've got, and there's only that's staying in his word. The more you read his word, the more you're able to walk away and your thoughts are changed and you can love more. And you're right. I find myself with more of just not participating and feeling the need to walk away. And it's been work to get there. It's not easy because it's just why I don't know why, but humans more like they tend to like to be liked. We like to be in our little groups and everyone agree with us.
Have y'all noticed how when you look somebody in the eye, it immediately softens your heart? Like it trains you to see, like the thing that I know I have seen people who online, they will say the most horrible things, but I know that if that person was standing in front of them, they would be kind. When you look somebody in the eye, I think it's training ourselves. It's softening our own hardness in our heart. And I think that's part of the dehumanization. It's become easier because we're not living these communities. Even our kids, like they're living online, and we don't have the day-to-day community interaction. That's when Kim was talking about volunteering and getting out and helping others, that you're integrating yourself into a community. It's reminding you of the humanity of everybody around you and helping you see, and there's just it's so beautiful. His creation, the diversity of his creation is so beautiful. And I think we end up in these little silos where everybody looks like us and thinks like us and talks like us. And we're removing so much of the richness from our lives. Our lives have just become bland. I mean, there is such a wealth of riches in the Father's world among his people.
And
So,
I think we've also moved away from the biblical basis for accountability, because in those communities and and I think about my family and about the people, there was always someone there that was willing to correct us when we stepped sideways, when we started to dehumanize someone, or when we were getting off the rails. Someone would step in. And I think about the pattern of Christ and his disciples. I mean, and he did it to Peter, he did it to James and John, and they could receive correction in humility without destroying a relationship. We've lost that ability, with the exception of, I have that group of people that, was it three of them sitting in this group with me, that if you see me sideways, I fully expect you to call me down, so that, because I may not be where I'm supposed to be. I may not be doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I may not be in the word like I need to be. And I need my brothers and sisters to, in love, go, hey, have you thought about this? And one of the best questions in the world that I've ever been asked is, how would Jesus have felt about that comment? How would Jesus have felt about, how would you justify that in a conversation with Christ? How do you make that okay with him? Because when you get down to the brass tacks of asking those kind of questions, it's really not me holding you accountable. It's not somebody else holding me accountable. It's the word holding me accountable. And the only way that I receive that correction is by maintaining that concept of humility in my life. And that's hard.
yeah. But that is a good question. And see, that's what sometimes when find myself in these corners where I'm backed into a conversational corner, and people will be coming at me with this political issue, and and there's nothing I can say that's not going to be offensive. And that's what people know. Do not have these conversations with me. But my main thing is, I just can't help but wonder what Jesus would think about this. And that does make us all pause. But I think even then, even those, if we were able to really see our brothers and sisters, even for the humans that they are, humanity's messy. We're complex. We all have such unique experiences, and you think, okay, what experience in this person's life has led them to this point, because we have different knowledge banks and different banks of experiences that we're drawn from. And if we can stop and see that in each other and think the best, assume the best of each other, then we're in a place. It's just like, I know the same thing about you. If I post something, if I post something online and y'all are like, "Ooh, what?" I expect to get text messages. I expect mine to be like, "Wait a minute," but I know that it's because you assume the best of me, and you know where my heart is. And when I am online, if I misspeak, if I mistype, or if I'm carried away and I'm blinded by anger or frustration or offense, I have the tremendous blessing of a close relationship. And I cannot believe I had this, because I'm telling y'all, this is something 20 years ago I never dreamed it would be possible. I have the close relationship of multiple brothers and sisters who assume the best of me, who truly love me, who can call or text and correct me. And I feel nothing but relief when I see that, because I know y'all got my back. I know that y'all know what I'm trying to do. And when that is us, one of us stumbling and the other saying, "Here, let me help you stand up again." Oh, you twisted your ankle? Lean on me for a while till it's better. That's us helping one another when we stumble. And I know that some people watching this may not have that yet in their life. Hang on. Keep following. It's coming. It's coming. I've got two more questions. And I wonder if this next one, I wonder if anybody has, because I think we may have already covered it. It's how has God challenged you personally in this area? Did everybody kind of cover their answer for that already? Or does anybody have anything else to add on that one?
When you asked this question and I had to answer it, God kind of went, "Hey, dependence isn't failure," and that's for me, um, because I have a tendency to want to do it on my own, and so He just went, "Hey, dependence isn't failure. It's okay to lean."
You're made for dependence. That was that quote that I found.
Mhm.
I think we all, I needed that.
Mm.
Yeah. I mean, someone took that, and that's really what the word, we're made to be dependent on Him. It's not a failure. It's a smart thing to do, really.
Mhm.
It's depend. Yeah. It's a good thing.
I
Good
feel
point.
like
Good point.
I feel like when I kind of pull the string to kind of see where am I not being humble, where are my challenges, um, I kind of it starts to lead to other strings, and um, so can I love others that I may think are unworthy? We talked about this earlier. Can I do that under my own strength? Can I be kind to others who have been very unkind to me? Can I do that under my own strength? Can I be joyful in a challenging situation under my own strength? And the answer is no. Um, but when I am poor in spirit, I think that's where the huge opportunity is for fruit to grow. Um,
Mm.
because we need to just empty it out and say, I can't do this on my own. I am dependent on you for this. And that's when we grow.
That's so
That's
true.
good. I kind of can't answer that. I have to. I'm kind of like Matt. I had something written down for it. It says, "How has God challenged you personally in every way, like all the ways, every bit of me, every bit of me. He's challenged. How has He not?" Was my answer actually to that. How has He not? Um, I wrote down Micah 6:8, and there's so many great translations there, but I love this. I loved how the CJB just said human being right off the bat. But the Tree of Life said, He has told you, humanity, what is good and what Adonai is seeking from you, only to practice justice, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. And I mean, he literally just says, hey, human being, humanity. Like, it's the more you, the closer you get to him, the more you depend on him, the more you read his word and return to him and repent and return. Your capacity for love is just going to grow in ways you never. You can just love people more.
Mhm.
You can. It it blows my mind how much reading his word brings me to loving people more.
Mm.
There's a song that says, I will walk in your, or I'll run in the way of your commandments when you enlarge my heart. And to me,
Yes,
that,
yes.
he keeps enlarging our hearts and bigger and bigger. I remember if any of y'all have like more than one child, you have the first child and you think, oh, I love this child so much. And there was that moment when you have the second child and you think, I hope I can love them as much as I love this first child because I love this child so much. And then you meet that child and you're like, oh, my heart just got, I love both of y'all even more now. I mean, and he just keeps growing and growing and growing that. And I'm so grateful for the capacity I have to love. It grows every day and it's not of me, it's not from me. Um, for how he's challenged me personally in this area. I used to, when I was younger, I love being the age I'm at now. Renita notes, I love being the age. Um, when I was younger, it used to be harder for me not to try to prove that I can add value or that I can produce meaningful work, that I can do things that, it was really hard for me not to try to prove because especially I think, I live in the South, where women can go in the back and make sandwiches and we'll handle the other stuff, And this is a little harder. And I've dealt with, we've all dealt with some people who are a little kind of arrogant and like to diminish us and, you know, make us feel like we don't, we are just good for making sandwiches. And I do make a good sandwich. But now as I've gotten older, I just let them have it. There's like, I am not the least bit interested in that battle anymore. I don't care. God knows my worth. And I'm trying to please him, and I want to do more for him. So I have a lot more hours in the day and a lot more peace in my life, not caring about that. When I mentioned earlier about the interrupt and eject yourself from the things that are running down your neighbor, Matt had given me a verse earlier that is perfect for that. I feel like it's just like it's written for that. And it's Proverbs 4:14 through 15. Do not set foot on the path of the wicked or walk in the way of evildoers. Avoid it. Do not travel on it. Turn from it and pass on by. So I see that as interrupt and eject. Turn from it and pass on by. So, and when you're doing that, it's like Matt was talking about earlier, when we were younger, you have people, if somebody had started, speaking like that in a way that was ungodly, unchristlike about people, somebody would be like, wait a minute. And we don't have people doing that, but just saying, hey, wait, this is not something I can take part in.
Mhm.
And, this is not something that my Messiah would want me taking part in. So now we come to the closing question here. um, Counting the costs. And I want this to be our closing question every time we have one of these. Y'all, I'm making a lot of assumptions because I just asked y'all to do this one, but this is going to be a series. And if you don't come, I mean, I'm not saying you're, just if you're okay with denying this to the Father, it's on you. Um, so counting the cost. When we live out this beatitude, what do we lose for a moment but gain forever?
Okay, so I'm a writer, and this one made me write for a second. And this is what I wrote. I said, living poor in spirit costs us pride, control, and recognition. We may lose comfort or popularity because humility doesn't shine under spotlights, it kneels at crosses. We lose the illusion of self sufficiency, but gain the reality of peaceful dependency. We lose temporary applause, but gain everlasting joy. And we lose the fleeting pride of this world, but gain the eternal presence of a king.
Amen.
Mm. I'm glad you're a writer. That's the Father has it's wonderful when he gives us abilities, shows us the abilities, and then provides opportunities for us to help others with them. Renita, what when we live out this beatitude, what do we lose for a moment but gain forever?
Well, I had mentioned this earlier, and I believe we lose being comfortable,
Mhm.
but we gain a relationship with Jesus for eternity, abiding with him. We lose, it cost us our mask. I
Mhm.
hope that makes sense.
Yes.
It cost me a mask that I've been guilty of wearing at times to just get along, to survive, somebody could say, in this world, but it wasn't surviving. It was denying the truth that I knew. So when you can lay that mask down and be who God knows, who your Father knows who you are. He knows they know already. And to lay that mask down of this world, that I don't always believe that we just place it on ourselves intentionally. I think from birth to here, you allow the world to put a mask. You allow those around you to put them, and you don't wipe it off. You don't take it away, and then it builds. We lose. I personally can say I lose some inhibitions of that. Like Christy said, I'm learning to go. Yeah, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to be a part of this, and not
Mhm.
caring whether you're talked about when you left. Okay, not I'm not
No,
proud of
that's a good
going,
point.
even if I didn't. Yeah,
Yeah.
but we we gain forever abiding with Him. We gain so much love, and we gain a fellowship.
Mhm.
I personally, we've gained a fellowship of brethren here, brothers and sisters that I would have never dreamed. I always say, whatever He might have taken from you and you didn't understand, you hold on and keep saying, I don't get it. I don't get it, but I'm going to trust in you. And He will give you back more than He ever took.
Yes, you will.
And so you can gain a lot when you lose those worldly things.
Mm. Yes, ma'am. Yes. Kim?
I think I lose a moment to be served instead of serving. I lose the feeling that I'm better, smarter, fill in the blank than somebody else, so that I can feel better about myself.
Mhm.
I lose the chance to prove I'm right at the expense of somebody else, and I lose the chance to glorify myself. Um, but what I gain is a heart that's focused on what's important to the Father and not to me, and a chance to serve Him and others, and a chance to hear, "Well done, faithful servant," and to glorify Him for eternity. And and I also get a chance to reframe what I'm doing. Um, how does how or what does this thing I'm prideful about further His kingdom? How does it bring glory to Him? How does it bring others to Him? How does it serve others? And if the answer is it doesn't, then it's of no value, um, because He deserves the glory.
Yeah.
That's good.
My thoughts, y'all have just got my brain spinning. I just keep thinking about what I'm so hung up on what we gain forever because we get it now. The kingdom
Mhm.
exists now. We're
Right.
citizens now. Think about it, you can't have a king without a kingdom, and I think so many people look to that as a future event, but when you live as a kingdom citizen now, as a disciple of Jesus, the assurance you gain, the peace, being able to, amid all the chaos, be in that eye of the storm and know that He's got you. The the deep and abiding joy that just like that peace surpasses all understanding. And then we gain it to such a degree that we're able to see other people in the chaos and anxiety and uncertainty, and we can give it to them too. We can make known His name and His kingdom when we're seeking His glory, when we're seeking to magnify Him instead of ourselves. We lose all that. We lose the opportunity to be knocked off our pedestal because we ain't getting on the pedestal,
Mhm.
you know? And I don't know, it's all about hope. Um, I just see it as, it's he's a win-win. Regardless, his way is always better, but we got to trust him to give it a shot because it ain't gonna make sense to our minds until we do.
And
So I have a verse. Go ahead, sorry.
I think humility gives us the freedom to follow in a way that nothing else does, because pride will say you've got to you're going to have to get it all right. But humility means that I can limp on in following
Mhm.
and go, I'm not perfect and I'm not going to be perfect, but every day I'm getting a little bit better, and He's grinding off some rough edges, and if I'm not there yet, it's okay. It's okay. I can, and I loved what Renita said when she said, we gain a fellowship. Because when you're trying to follow, there's a lot, the thing that makes it hard is a lot of people don't recognize what that looks like. But God will put people beside you that help you take the next step. And sometimes even it takes humility to even recognize that and to let somebody in. So I think humility just yeah, it costs a little bit. It's gonna make you feel bad sometimes. It's gonna you're gonna want that recognition from the world. You're gonna want that pat on the back from somebody that says, "Hey, I see what you're doing." But you get quiet. Papa gets real good pats on the back.
Mhm. Yeah. Y'all,
Remember, he tells us to lift up the brethren, to edify each other and lift us up. I think we need to mention that. Sometimes we forget to do that,
Uh huh.
and we need to.
mhm.
Yeah, that's so. I see what you're doing there. Yay, because sometimes we feel like we're going, "Oh man, oh man, that was tough," but some we're to lift each other up.
And when your brethren do that for you, to me, it's always a reminder, because I'll be in the middle of something and I'll just get this random text from Renita that lets me know God, I get that text from her. It's from her, but what it tells me is He's the God who sees me. He's the God who sees me. And that's not just enough. Everything. That's everything. So I have a verse to close this out. It's Matthew 16, 24. Then Jesus told his disciples, if anyone would come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. For whoever would save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. For what will it profit a man if he gains the whole world and forfeits his soul? And he's life. He's life. Life and life abundantly in this kingdom and in the next is found in him. So,
Man,
y'all, thank you. This was special. This was special. I hope I didn't flub it up too much because y'all were wonderful. I'm going to close us out. Then y'all stay in the Zoom call when I stop recording. But and we'll talk for just a few minutes. But if you would, everybody who's watching this, please keep everybody who watches this, keep us all in your prayers. Keep the body of believers in your prayers. When the people submitted their answers to our questions and stuff, I also asked them if they had any prayer requests, and we'll keep those in our prayers. Just pray for everybody in this world, everybody who's seeking to follow Jesus, everybody who doesn't yet know Jesus, and pray for the entire body. Um, our test scores are coming in, and there's a lot of really bad grades, but he ain't give up on us yet. We got private tutors, we can be working on this. So just hang in there, keep us all in your prayers, and thank you for we'll keep you in our prayers. And thank you for tuning in. And we love
Thank
y'all.
you.
thank you guys.
Love you.